Deep in the remote northern highlands, far beyond the last marked roads on any official map, there exists a forest the locals refuse to name. A forest described not as a place but as a presence, an entity that listens, remembers, and reacts. For generations, villagers have spoken of strange disappearances, wandering voices, and shadows that move on their own, but their stories rarely spread. Beyond the mountains, outsiders dismissed them as superstition, the kind born naturally from isolation and old traditions. Yet those who lived in the mountains insisted that something ancient resided. Among the trees, something with patience far greater than any living creature. And when it noticed you, it never forgot. This is where our story begins, though in truth it started long before Min was born. Min, a dedicated documentary filmmaker, had spent his career uncovering mysteries that others ignored. He wasn't a sensationalist. His work was thoughtful, methodical, rooted in evidence. But as the years passed, he felt an inexplicable emptiness settling into his chest, like an echo from something unresolved. His father, a once renowned field researcher, had vanished when Min was 16, leaving no clues except a sudden, unexplainable disappearance during an expedition. Min grew up haunted by absence, of answers, of closure, of understanding. And though he rarely admitted it aloud, his career was shaped by one unspoken desire: to finish the work his father never returned from. One evening, while organizing old storage boxes containing his father's notes, Min came across a worn leather journal. Tucked inside was a hand-drawn map of a forested region he had never seen before. The paper smelled like earth and time, and along the edge of the map were 3 words in shaky handwriting: "The forest watches back." Something within Min shifted. It felt less like curiosity and more like a call, one that had been waiting for him to notice. The map marked a place far from any documented village, deep in a region rumored to be spiritually closed. Local tribes believed the forest in that area was alive in ways no human should disturb. Min's father had traveled there decades earlier, but no records explained why he went or why he never returned. Driven by a mixture of longing, fear, and determination, Min resolved to create a documentary investigating the forest and retracing his father's final journey. This would be his most personal project, though he told no one that. He enlisted the help of Lon, a field researcher, known for her measured, almost instinctive sense of danger. Lon had worked with Min before and trusted his judgment, but she also believed in boundaries, especially where ancient places were involved. When Min showed her the map, she grew quiet, studying the patterns and ink strokes like they were living things. She eventually agreed to join him, though she warned him that some places resisted being seen and some stories had sharp teeth. As they approached the northern highlands, they noticed signs of fear everywhere. The small villages along the base of the mountains were silent after dusk. Doors were locked with red threads and charms woven from bone. Mothers kept their children inside. When Min asked about the forest, villagers avoided eye contact or changed the subject entirely. One elderly man finally spoke, his voice trembling as though he had spent a lifetime swallowing fear. He told Min that the deeper parts of the forest were forbidden, not by law, but by survival. "Those who enter do not leave," he said, "and those who return are not the ones who went in." Min assumed the stories were exaggerations rooted in folklore. Lon wasn't so sure. She felt something watching them even before they reached the forest boundary. When they finally entered the forest, everything changed instantly. The air was unnaturally still, even the faintest breeze seemed afraid to pass through. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. The deeper they walked, the heavier the silence became, like a blanket pressing against their skins. Min filmed everything, fascinated by the serenity, while Lon noted unusual markings carved into some tree trunks, spiral shapes, eyes, patterns that seemed to shift slightly depending on which angle she viewed them from. After several hours, they found an abandoned campsite. It looked recent. Pots left half buried in cold ash. A tent collapsed as though someone fled in a hurry. Min approached the site cautiously, searching for signs of life. Lan felt a chill crawl up her spine. Something about the ground felt wrong, as though footsteps had been erased rather than faded naturally. They found no bodies, but the absence felt louder than discovering one. They continued deeper. The forest began to distort their sense of distance. A hill visible in the distance took hours to reach, and when they looked back, the path behind them twisted in unfamiliar ways. Trees seemed to have shifted positions. Lan insisted they mark their route, tying red ribbons to branches. Minutes later, the ribbons vanished. The branches they tied them to were no longer the same. Min grew pale but insisted they push forward. That night, they set up camp under towering old trees that seemed to lean just slightly toward them. As they prepared to sleep, the ground vibrated faintly. At first, Min thought it was his imagination, but Lan heard it too. Then came the whispers. They seeped from the soil, soft at first like distant murmurs. But soon they formed tones, rhythmic, almost like chanting. Min tried to record the sounds, but his equipment malfunctioned. Batteries drained instantly. Lights flickered. Lan lay awake, listening to the forest breathe. Something moved among the trees, large and deliberate. But each time she shone her flashlight, nothing was there. By morning, both felt the forest had shifted around them. Landmarks they noted were gone. A thick mist had rolled in, swirling unnaturally in slow, spiraling forms. They wandered until they stumbled upon something ancient. Stone ruins hidden beneath moss and roots. The ruins consisted of pillars arranged in a circular formation. Each pillar bore carvings of eyes, dozens of them, layered atop one another. Some looked human, others resembled animals. A few looked like nothing that belonged to Earth. In the center stood a monolith taller than any surrounding tree. It was covered with carved human faces frozen mid-scream, their features twisted with terror. Min filmed it with awe and dread, certain his father had seen this place. Lan approached the monolith. The stone pulsed faintly. Beneath her fingertips, felt warm like living flesh. Nearby, Min found a ruined camp partially swallowed by roots. Buried beneath debris lay a torn journal. After cleaning the pages, Min realized with shock that it was his father's. Many entries were damaged, but several remained legible. His father had discovered the ruins and spent days documenting them. But the tone of his entries changed drastically near the end. Words became frantic. Sentences broke off mid-thought. He wrote of voices that followed him even when he stood still, of shadows that mimicked his movements, of roots that twisted like fingers reaching for his ankles at night. One entry read, "The forest is not a place. It is a being, ancient, infinite, watching." Another read, "It learns who enters. It becomes them." The final entry ended abruptly, "Min, if you ever..." The ink line dragged off the page. Min's breath shook. His father had been here. His father had vanished here. Lan placed a hand on Min's shoulder, urging him to leave before they suffered the same fate. But Min felt something pulling him deeper, whether it was desperation, destiny, or something calling. From the forest itself, he couldn't tell. That night, the forest revealed its true nature. The ground trembled with a slow heartbeat. The whispering grew louder, now forming words in a language Min didn't recognize, but Lan did. It was speaking his name, calling him, imitating his father's voice. Shadows beneath the trees lengthened unnaturally, bending toward them even though their lantern's light remained still. Lan screamed when she saw one shadow detach itself from the tree line and crawl toward Min, stretching like black liquid. Min stood entranced, murmuring something. Under his breath, the monolith's carved faces seemed to shift, mouths widening, eyes rolling as if waking from centuries of sleep. Lan ran to pull Min away, but the ground convulsed, and roots burst upward like skeletal hands. One wrapped around her ankle, another around her wrist. She struggled as the forest tried to drag her down. Min snapped out of his trance, grabbed Lan, and pulled with all his strength. The roots recoiled like wounded animals, disappearing beneath the soil. The forest screamed, not through sound, but through the sudden violent shaking of trees, leaves falling like rain, shadows twisting into contorted shapes. They fled, running blindly through the dark. The forest rearranged itself with each step. Pathways looped back onto themselves. The mist thickened, so dense it felt like a living barrier trying to smother them. Their flashlights flickered, revealing glimpses of figures wandering between the trees. Figures shaped like people, but moving in jerky, unnatural patterns. Some were taller than any human. Some walked silently over the ground without touching it. And some wore familiar faces. At one point, Min saw what looked exactly like his father standing several meters away. Same clothing, same posture, same eyes. But when the figure smiled, the expression was not human. Min collapsed to his knees, shaking. Lan dragged him up, forcing him to run. Hours felt like days. The forest toyed with them, guiding them in circles, showing them visions that blurred the line between memory, illusion, and nightmare. At one point, they reached the abandoned campsite again, the same one from earlier. But now it was fresh, fire still burning, footprints in the dirt. Min realized with horror that the tracks belonged to them, though neither remembered making them. Lan found a narrow passage where the trees seemed thinner and pushed Min forward. "Don't look back," she said. But Min did, and he saw dozens of faces watching them from the darkness. Not carved, not illusions. Faces of those the forest had taken. Eyes glowing faintly, mouths twitching with whispers. Their bodies, half merged with roots, suspended like offerings. Some faces Min recognized from missing person posters. One looked like a child. Another, Min swore, looked like his father. Lan yanked him forward, but the ground split open behind them, revealing a cavern pulsing like a living heart. Voices rose from its depths, calling, begging, imitating their own words from moments earlier. The forest repeated their footsteps, their breathing, their screams. After what felt like eternity, they burst out of the tree line. Dawn light washed over them like salvation. The forest behind them grew, silent once more, as if retreating into stillness, pretending to be ordinary again. Min collapsed, gasping. Lan fell beside him, trembling, but something felt wrong. The villagers found them hours later. Lan was unconscious but alive. Min sat upright, staring blankly into the trees. When they tried speaking to him, he did not respond. His lips moved silently, as though repeating something he heard far away. His eyes were unfocused, pupils wide. Lan eventually recovered. Min never did. He spoke rarely, and when he did, his voice was layered, as if something else whispered beneath his words. He refused to enter forests, even small ones. At night, he said the roots moved beneath his bed. When asked what happened, he always replied the same. "The forest learned my name." Some nights, Lan wakes to the sound of whispering outside her window. Sometimes she thinks she hears Min calling her name, even though he lives miles away. Sometimes she dreams of faces, half buried in soil, eyes watching, and she wonders whether they truly escaped, or if the forest simply let them go, knowing that once it has seen someone, a part of them always belongs to it. Because some places are not meant to be entered, some stories are not meant to be told, and some forests do not forget.